All righty. Welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. I'm an attorney and legal coach based here in the United States, serving online entrepreneurs throughout the US and the world. Welcome to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. I'm so happy to have today's guest, Jackson Millan. Welcome, Jackson.
G'day, how you doing?
Excellent. Oh my gosh, I just love the good day. I know. We're all feeling happy right now, right off the bat. So, this is perfect. For those of you that don't know Jackson, Jackson is the wealth mentor, and he has spent the last 14 years helping service businesses understand the language of money and manufacture financial freedom for themselves and their families. He has successfully helped over 1,000 clients build in excess of 1.5 billion in combined wealth and has scaled multiple seven-figure businesses. He is the master of helping business owners make money work for them and turn their business profit into personal wealth. Oh, let's see. Sorry, you had a bonus resources thing right at the end of your bio, but so I'll have my editor edit that section out. So welcome, Jackson. I'm super excited to find out more about you, more about your journey, and really have you share some insights for people listening that will help them on their journey as well.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate you having me here. I'm looking forward to diving into it.
Right. No, this will be so fun. And I know like there are other things that we can get into along the way. You and I share a massive love of animals and nature and some other things that will be fun to chat about. But share with us a little bit. I always love to hear people's entree into the world of business or entrepreneurship. Can you share a little bit about your own journey?
Yes, so I was very fortunate that I had very good role models from the very beginning. My parents were business owners. They were incredibly hard workers. My mum was a hairdresser. She was very, very good at what she did. My dad was just amazing with his hands. He could build anything, he could fix anything, and he had lots of different trade and home services businesses over the years. But as a kid, I really observed them working incredibly hard and always telling me, wearing as a badge of honor, Jackson, if you want to be successful in this world, you need to work hard for it. And work hard they did. I saw them work 16-hour days, 7 days a week for as long as I could remember. But they never had much to show for it.
Mm.
There was always enough to survive. We never went without anything. We always had a roof over our head and we always had food on the table, but there was always just enough. And there was never any abundance. There was definitely no financial freedom. And I come to realize that they were working for money as opposed to money working for them. And I
Mm.
also realized pretty early on that just because you're incredibly good at what you do, it doesn't necessarily presuppose that you're going to create financial freedom and have that flexibility that most business owners get into business for. So I started trying to work out a way that I could break the mold, and I started training to become a financial advisor at 19. And I very quickly became disheartened because what I thought financial advice was, helping people like my parents navigate these difficult financial decisions, ultimately was just product pushing and selling commission-based products to people like my parents who didn't need them. And I hated it. I nearly threw in my
Mm.
hat. But as I was just about to exit the door, I asked myself a question. I said, Jackson, if you were going to do this the way that you wanted to do it, what would it look like? And I binned the term financial advisor. I donned the term wealth coach, and I started educating my clients around the language of money and working with them to be able to master their money and work towards financial freedom. And over the better part of the last 15 years, we've been able to help thousands of clients the world around, amass billions of dollars in wealth, and I've been able to create financial freedom for myself at 33. So we now live on our animal sanctuary in far north Queensland. We've got 70 animals now, and we're practicing what we preach.
That's amazing. So I'm really curious at the point in your journey where you decided like, oh, this path is not working, right? The financial advisor path is not what I thought it would be. Did you immediately make the leap, or were there shifts that you had to make in the way that you counseled people, coached people, thought about money yourself? I'm curious because you obviously had the perspective to know that was not the fit, but did you go seeking additional information and education, or did you just make the jump?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Um, the tipping point for me was that for at the beginning of my career, I was a very much do what I say, not what I do advisor. Okay. And I inherited that from my dad. And my dad was a big dreamer. He was always very good at giving advice. He was very wise. He was very well read. but he never implemented all of the stuff that he was teaching me. And I think
Mm.
subconsciously, I probably looked at it skeptically because he didn't have the experience to be able to talk from doing the same things. But he was obviously just trying to do the best by me. And I kind of inherited that
Mm.
trait. And I got to a point, probably in my mid-20s, where I realized that I'd been living hand to mouth myself. I'd been spending all of
Mm.
my money. Um, and I just really struggled with this fundamental concept of traditional financial planning of if you want to be wealthy, you need to defer gratification and you need to sacrifice. And I'm like, stuff this. This is boring. Like, I don't want to eat cat food for dinner in order to squirrel away every last red cent until I'm 65 so then I can reap the rewards. That sounds terrible. And
Mm.
particularly in 2017, I lost my father at the age of 66 to pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
And he, even though he hadn't been incredibly smart with money, he did try and put money away in order to prepare for his golden years, for when he did finally retire and start reaping the rewards of his hard work. And he didn't even get an opportunity to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that was really a catalyst for me. That catalyst made me ask the question, well, what if the opposite were true? What if I could have my cake and eat it too? And the idea of shrinking yourself wealthy, and this is what resonates most with entrepreneurs and why our system works so well for business owners, is because as a business owner, we are manufacturers of wealth. We manufacture wealth every day with our business. We are actively involved in turning our skill set, our expertise, our IP, our time, our knowledge into money. So, what if we apply that same philosophy to our wealth creation? And you only need to shrink yourself wealthy, meaning you need to make a scarcity based choice if there is an absence of means.
Mm.
So the precursor to solving that is having a better plan, what we call a three-dimensional plan, because the vast majority of people are one-dimensional planners. They
Mm.
work towards one goal at a time. I want to buy my home. I want to pay it off. I want to send the kids to a good school. I want to buy a new car. I want to go on a holiday. They're like a horse with their blinders on. And what inevitably happens is they have this one goal, a conflicting goal comes out of the periphery that competes for those resources, and they now need to make a scarcity-based choice. However, if we were just better at planning, we could have planned for all of it and we could have it all. We can have our cake and eat it too. And that's how I went from living hand to mouth myself to being able to create financial freedom in a very short period of time, and why we've been so successful in helping our clients do the same.
Mm. Well, first, I want to acknowledge I'm so sorry about the loss of your father. I think so many people can relate to that, like having watched a parent, myself included, work so hard, try to do the right things, right? I feel like very few people are just naturally excellent with money. Like it is something that most of us have to learn, right? It's a resource to manage. There's so many things that tie in to the creation of money and wealth, right? Our mindset, you talked about like scarcity mindset versus what could another approach be, right? But the motivation that came out of that, of like watching your father walk that path and just really thinking there has to be a different way. Love that you were able to do something with it that was so meaningful, not only for you, but for your clients. I'd love to hear more about the three-dimension plan versus the single dimension, right? I think we got the point around like so many of us have blinders on when it comes to like achieving this goal in relation to our money or this goal in relation to our lifestyle, but sounds like you have a way of addressing it that's much different.
Yes, I definitely do. So, what I come to realize for myself, and selfishly, I built all of our systems for me because I needed them. What's been
Mm.
interesting, Heather, is that only in recent times I've actually been formally diagnosed with ADHD. And
Mm.
with that, it actually explained a lot of things that
Mm.
most people with ADHD really struggle to defer gratification. They have hyperfixation on things that they get deeply obsessed with and just throw immense amount of energy, effort, and also financial means towards it, only just to lose interest and move on to the next thing. It was incredibly frustrating through my earlier years as I was kind of navigating that. But what I come to realize is that myself at an extreme, but to some degree, most other people, their financial operating system is subjective, knee jerk, reactive, and the default outcome is not appropriate action. Appropriate action is the outlier. So I started
Mm.
working out, okay, if I was going to fix this, what would it need to do? And I created a signature system that we call the wealth mastery machine. And the reason why we call it a machine is, let's think about what a machine is. A machine produces a regular, repeated, consistent result. And in your experience, Heather, working with so many entrepreneurs, how many entrepreneurs do you think could explain their finances as a machine right now?
Right. No, the whole systems concept, right? Even, and I've talked to people who are truly systems experts who are like, no, that's not a system. You've got a process, but it doesn't run itself. It's not automated. You know what I mean? Like, so long as it requires a human to do each of the steps, it probably is going to fall apart, right?
Exactly. Sorry, my dog's that's deciding to have a fight. Um,
I love that. I love little doses of real life that come into these
exactly.
conversations. So no worries.
Exactly. So yeah, exactly right. So what we basically did is we said, okay, if we're going to create a system, we need to make sure that the default outcome is action, the appropriate action.
Mhm.
And the idea here is that we all want to create financial freedom. And there are three pillars of what we need to create a three-dimensional plan, to have default actions, and have the ability to optimize and improve those financial results over time. So the first pillar of what we need to do is we need to define.
Mhm.
The biggest mistake that people make is that they believe that money is the destination. It
Mm.
is not. It's the vehicle. It's the hammer, it's the screwdriver, it is the tool that is required to get the job done.
And when you
We
say
just need to,
money is the destination, are you thinking of like the folks that are like, oh, when I make my first $1 million or whatever, like they're thinking in terms of like that's the arrival point.
exactly. It is typically
Mm.
an ego-based guess. And it is not tangibly linked to anything, which means that they are not invested in that number. And it is likely not going to be enough, or they're not going to be connected to it because they actually haven't done the work to define what that amount of money could produce for them, or how they should actually do it is reverse engineer. So what we go through with our clients is an exercise of creating a 20-year roadmap, which sounds really scary for most people. Um, and the idea here is that we document all of their lifestyle and financial goals over 20 years. We then quantify each of those goals and reverse engineer them into a tangible action plan, which defines the income target they need to achieve, how much surplus that they would need to have, where would they need to allocate that surplus to presuppose each goal would be achieved. And the cornerstone of this, Heather, is that if we can link the outcomes that are intrinsically important to you, the home you want to raise your kids in, the school you want to send them to, the holidays you want to go on, the cars you want to drive, the hobbies you want to pursue, whatever else you want, these things that you're deeply invested in, and reverse engineer that into a tangible figure. So let's say, for
Mhm.
example, you need to earn $250,000 a year in order to achieve all of these goals. How much more invested are you in hitting that target?
Mhm.
So that's the cornerstone. And that then allows us to connect the activity that you do in your business to all of your financial goals and metrics.
Mhm.
Defining is really key. We work on some money mindset, help us shift some of those self-limiting beliefs and behaviors. And that basically forms the key to everything that we do moving forwards. The second part is create. It is not the money that you make that matters, it's what you keep that counts. So wealth is created with cash flow.
Mhm.
Most people, their business and their personal finances is a cash eating monster. They make money, and before they know it, the money has slipped through their fingers and they have no idea where it's gone. So, what we need to do is we need to create a cash flow structure that leverages a behavioral principle that we call Parkinson's Law. Have you come across Parkinson's Law before, Heather?
I'm sure that I have. I should know it.
Let me explain to
Mhm.
those who are listening who haven't heard of it. So, Parkinson's Law is a behavioral principle that governs all of us as human beings. And it basically states that as a human being, the more means that we have, the more means that we use. We always use the means that we have available. So the example that I really like to
Mm.
use is the assignment back at school. When the teacher gave you 8 weeks to do the assignment,
It will take you 8 weeks, right? So I
it'll
was gonna
take you
say,
8 weeks.
I think I've heard this principle in relation to time, right? You
Yes,
allot yourself whatever number of hours to work, and that's what it's gonna take to complete that thing.
exactly. And what's interesting is that in this world, there are only two tradable commodities. There's time and there's money. And they
Mhm.
operate on very similar rules. So Parkinson's law plays out in your time as much as it does for your finances. And what we need to do is we need to create a structure that presupposes surplus. So instead of having income minus expenses equals surplus, we go income minus surplus equals expenses. It's a simple shift, but by limiting the means that we have, we limit the means that we use. Pretty simple, right?
Right. Yeah, simple. And yet, when you think of how many people would naturally arrive to that, right? Not many. I think most
No,
people are like, what does it take to survive? What does it take to get this business up and running? I'm just going to pay those expenses. And then they end up living on whatever's left over.
exactly. And the big issue here is that most people believe that cash flow management requires the dirty B word, budget. No one wants to budget. Budgeting's icky. I hate it. As an entrepreneur, particularly when you're successful, you're good at what you do, you don't want to have to budget. But what you want to do is you want to be able to work out what does your lifestyle realistically cost? And then in
Mm,
turn, based on what you're trying to achieve and the income that we're producing, how do we make sure that we presuppose that surplus so it is basically guaranteed? And then it's a matter of having a system to allocate that surplus, whether it's paying down debts or whether it's building wealth. And we keep this super, super simple.
mm. Well, it's just, it reminds me of how important it is for us because the way that I think about it is we all have limited time and attention, right? And just like right now, one of the things I'm trying to tackle in my life because we're a few weeks away from starting a new school year, right? My kids are both going to be in a full-time school schedule, but it's like, okay, how do we get we as a family get our mind and our schedule around meal planning, right? Plan, because it's one of the things that consistently has slipped through the cracks. And I'm like, okay, we're handling this. And I have limited time and attention to do it, right? So I'm calling
Yes.
on some experts and some resources to help us figure out a system that will work, that we can stick to. Money is the same. Like I think we all have areas that we're naturally inclined to, but for many of us, it's not money. And the importance of sitting down with somebody like yourself. My husband and I connected with a financial advisor this past year who walked us very much through the process that you're talking about, that it really gave us the structure that we needed to be having the right conversations about our money, right? But without getting the help, we wouldn't have gotten there on our own. I can just say that.
Exactly. It's so important. And the key part here, and I'm glad you mentioned this around bandwidth. This is the
Mm,
most often overlooked aspect of financial management. And the reason why so many people put it on the back burner and defer it and don't think about it, it's because they believe that it requires so much bandwidth.
mm,
And where they're actually investing their time is what we call life raft activity. So when we get to the third pillar, which is management, our
mm.
whole entire system takes our clients less than 30 minutes a month to manage. And it's built off a principle that I wrote about in my first best-selling book that I actually took from Barack Obama. So President Obama in his presidency only wore navy suits and white shirts. And the reason why he did this is because he realized that he only had so much capacity for making decisions each day. And there comes a point in his day where he reaches decision fatigue, where his ability to make good decisions is exhausted. And he didn't want to use any of that decision-making power to decide what he was going to wear in the morning.
Right.
So when you're talking about running a family and running a business and trying to live a life, you don't want to have to think about coming home at an evening and working out what am I going to cook for dinner tonight?
Yes, that's
Um,
exactly it. My brain feels irritated wasting time on decisions that I feel like should already be handled. It's
Correct.
things right, like my own paperwork. I'm fine dealing with other people's paperwork. I don't want to have to put that much effort into managing my own receipts or whatever, right? Which is why we need a system to do it for
Yes.
us. Yes.
And it's all of this kind of stuff that I call life raft activity, because there's two
Yes.
types of activity in the world. There's life raft activity and there's yacht activity. And stuff like managing your
Mm,
cash flow, doing this paperwork, putting food on the table, or thinking about what you're going to cook, and all of these kind of stuff. Um, it's not needle moving stuff. It's necessary
no.
stuff, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily needle moving stuff. It's not the big strategic decisions that are going to catapult you forwards. So we need to be able to systemize, commoditize, automate that life raft activity to the best of our ability. So then we can save that bandwidth for the yacht activity.
Mm.
It's the stuff that's really going to move the needle forwards. It's the enjoyable stuff, which once again, it comes back into those tradable commodities. There's only two. There's time and there's money. Sometimes we need to know how we buy back our time so we can then go and
Mhm.
invest it elsewhere for a high yield for greater benefit.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. Well, and my husband and I were having conversations even recently about this because he's like, I don't mind doing the grocery shopping and I don't mind doing like some things that really irritate me, right? But I said, I know you don't mind it, but should we still be doing it? That's my question. Because if our
Yes.
priorities in life are to maximize the time that we get together, because, that's been extraordinarily limited as parents during COVID with little people, right? Our date nights basically shriveled down to like nothing. Should we be doing it? Yes, you don't mind doing it, and I hate doing it, but should we be doing it at all, right? And so I'm really pushing for like, what are some creative ways? And I love your description of the life raft activity where we could stop doing all these life can't even say it, raft activities that annoy me, right? In lieu of what's the alternative? Adventuring together, spending more time with our kids, doing, something else other than that.
100%. And we do an activity with our clients around this because we believe that we need to understand the triple bottom line. There are basically
Mhm.
three things as entrepreneurs that we're trying to improve, which is profit, our time, and our wealth. So those are the only three currencies that we should really be thinking about. It's about maximizing the profit in our business, time, disconnecting our effort from our income. So how can I increase profit in less time? And then how can I systematically build personal wealth, which becomes my number one employee that will work tirelessly for me 24/7, 365, with no sick days, no annual leave, all of it, basically it's going to work for me. So the activity that we take our clients through, and I do this myself personally once a quarter, is what's called
Mhm.
the time sucking monster. And what it requires me to do is to do a complete time audit of every single minute of my day. And it sounds cumbersome, but it's actually quite easy. We've created a system to do it. And the first thing that I do is I work out, well, what is my time worth? So I work out what's my annual earnings. Let's say it's $500,000. Okay. And then I work out two numbers. I work out what are the number of hours that I work per week and the number of weeks I work per year. So I work about 40 hours a week. I work about 44 weeks a year. So that means that my effective hourly rate is $284 an hour. And then I work out my life hourly rate. So there is 8,760 hours in a year. So I divide 500,000 by 8,760, which works out to $57 an hour. So that basically means that with these two numbers, it allows me to evaluate what are the tasks that I should delete that I shouldn't be doing anymore.
Mhm.
What are tasks that I should be delegating because they're still valuable, but they're just not valuable for me to do? And what are the tasks that I should dominate, the things that I should be really focusing on allocating that time? And sometimes that's just taking that off the table and just taking it to enjoy and just chill out.
Mhm.
Because this is the biggest issue in the entrepreneurial space. We don't have a triple bottom line. We chase the only quantifiable metric, which is more profit or more revenue or more. And that's not sustainable. It's about having balance, running the marathon, and not doing it at sprint pace.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think it's a challenge for people to get out of the sprint mindset.
Yes. And giving yourself permission to say, hey, if I don't want to do the cleaning anymore, let me hire a cleaner a couple of times a week or once a week to come in. Hey, if I don't want to cook meals, there are so many good services out there that you can order nutritious meals in that gives you diversity. Even just get your these food boxes where you can just have
Mhm.
all of the groceries and ingredients and everything that you need to cook it in 15 minutes, whatever.
Mhm.
Get a personal chef if you're successful enough to warrant the investment. There are so many things that you can do that make your life just so much more enjoyable that you
Mhm.
can focus on the things that really matter.
For sure. And I'm curious because when I think about, folks listening, I imagine there's a lot of people that have some of their systems in place, right? They've got some of their money working for them. Maybe they've got a savings plan, maybe they have an investment plan. They've got part of the structure, but they're still not at the place of like, oh, I really have this sorted out, right? So for folks that are kind of midway down that path, what do you see them struggling with most to kind of take their plan to the next level?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's knowing the magic number. And the magic number, the financial services industry globally complicates this because traditionally the industry wants you to work with a financial advisor, with a fiduciary
Mm,
who makes these decisions for you because they've made it out to be too complicated. Now, for most
mm,
entrepreneurs, they don't just want to hand over the keys to the vault. They want to be involved. They want to have a done with you solution. They want to work on
mhm.
how do they apply the same principles like what they do in their business. It's like you're not going to just hand over your business to a stranger, right? Um,
Right.
why should you do it with your money? So I try to simplify this, and we've got a really simple formula. We call it the financial freedom formula.
Mm,
So what you firstly need to do is you need to define based on the dream lifestyle that you want. It's going to allow you to have the experiences and do all the things that you want to do. How much income do you need per year to live that lifestyle? So for me personally, it's about $200,000 a year. And the financial freedom formula is the passive income divided by 5 and multiplied by 100. So passive income divided by 5 multiplied by 100. So for me, 200,000 divided by 5 multiplied by 100 is $4 million in net wealth.
mm,
So if I have $4 million in net wealth outside of my home and my business, I am financially free.
mm.
And we need to work towards that. Cool. Okay. Well, for some people, they're going to have a come to Jesus moment when they work out that number. They're going to go, oh, shit, that's a big number. And that's okay. We need that. What
Mhm.
we then need to define is the levers that we pull to get from where we are to where we need to go. And there's only three. Lever number one is how much you contribute. So, what is going into your wealth creation to allow us to achieve that number? Two, how much risk are you taking to get there? So, if you keep all your money sitting in cash, it's not doing you any favors. It's probably going backwards after inflation. Or if you got it in the share market, yeah, on average, you'll make 10% a year, but it'll go up and down in the process, right? So, it's about finding what's your tolerance to risk. What is our assumed
Mhm.
rate of return? Now, three, how long are you prepared to wait?
Mm.
And out of those three levers, the one that we can influence the most is how much we contribute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes it
Yeah.
simple.
It does. Yeah. And I really like, thinking of it in terms of the levers. I do think when you say like some people are going to have a come to Jesus moment, once you actually figure out, especially moving forward, because obviously you have to take into account inflation, cost of living, moving forward, it's because we did this, right? We went through this exercise and it was eye-opening to think like, and if we wanted to leave, whatever X number of dollars for our children, or like the numbers get pretty big pretty fast, right?
They do.
Even on a moderate, annual expense basis. So with that in mind, and you just pointing out that the thing that we can most impact most quickly is the contribution. Can
Correct.
you walk me through some ways that you help clients figure it out how to do better at that lever, right? Because that's more
Yes.
than just making a decision. That's like strategy and business, and like there's a lot that goes into that one lever.
Yes. So the typical financial planning way about this is that you cut your expenses, you
Mm,
trim the budget so you've got more surplus. Bullshit. Um, as an entrepreneur, don't shrink yourself wealthy. It is
mhm,
not sustainable. You might be able to do it for a week or a month or a year or even a few years, but there is inevitably going to come a point in time where you fall off the rails. And I've seen in my experience that you will end up
mhm.
doing more harm than good because
Mm.
you'll fall back into old habits and you'll compensate for lost time and missed opportunity, and it's miserable. So,
I feel like this needs a double underline right here, right?
yes,
Because I think people sometimes don't understand really the nuance of what you're saying. And I heard somebody else say it a different way really early in my career. I had a business coach, and she said, you can't get fat and skinny at the same time.
yes,
Right. And it really is a
Love it.
mindset shift, but away from scarcity into more of an abundant mindset. Right. So,
Exactly.
yes. So help, because some people are going to struggle with that. They've been told their
Yes.
entire lives, watch the expense column, skinny down, do all of this other stuff that's very traditional advice.
Exactly. And I use a very similar analogy is that there comes a point in time where you're cutting the fat that you start cutting into the muscle. And without
Mm,
the muscle, you can't operate. So we need to make sure that we've got the structure, which the structure basically takes care of the expenses and what we call cash flow creep. Because what we want to avoid is as the income increases, the lifestyle increases proportionately. And as a result, we have no more to show for it. In some cases, we have less to show for it. We've seen in some
mm,
circumstances. So what we need to do is we need to understand, okay, for me to achieve the goals, how much do I need to contribute? Therefore, based on my lifestyle and what I want to do, if I add the surplus required and the lifestyle, what's my income target? Then in order for me to hit that income target, what's my profit target? Then based on that profit target, what's my revenue target? Then based on that revenue target, what's my client target? And then based on that client target, what's my lead target? So we can link all of the activity to the outcomes and quantify the gap. And now all
mm,
that is the only variable here is you. Are you prepared to do what is required to hit those numbers? Do you think it's possible? And in some cases,
mm,
it's not, right? I've had some people come to me that are super ambitious. And when we go through this exercise, they go, oh shit, that's a big number. I don't think I could do it, at least
mm,
now. Okay, cool. Well,
mhm,
what's possible? Okay, great. Well, based on what you think is possible, this is what the likely outcome or trajectory is. It doesn't mean we can't play catch up later on down the track, but let's just start setting a realistic of what you think is possible and what's reality, and then set a trajectory
mm,
based on that. So this is where we start calibrating people from dreaming into really doing and managing and manufacturing wealth and manufacturing financial freedom with being in the driver's seat and having control.
mm. Well, the thing that I love about, you know, being in the position of having somebody like you in an advisor seat, right? We went through putting a plan in place, right? What you're talking about, like actually turning it into like a practical step by step. How do we achieve these numbers? Starting on the plan, and a year or two into it, having like some major expenses come up, right? Where we're like, okay, some things we can plan for, some things we can't, but what does this
Yes,
mean for our plan? And having somebody who is comfortable helping people create these plans, be strategic about the trade-offs. I just have found immense comfort in being able to have somebody to call to say, "Hey, this came up. What do we do now to kind of fix our plan, right? Or to adjust for this?" Do you find that you are having those conversations with people once they've got the plan in place? And what are the
for
things that
sure.
you most often?
Yeah, look, there's always stuff that comes and hits us for a six or throws a curveball at us. It's just life, it's just business,
Mhm,
and these things happen. So, what we try and do is we try and use these experiences to better adapt our plan. And how do we create better margins of safety and build a war
mhm,
chest that ensures that we can factor for these unforeseen events, which are inevitable? They're going to come
mhm,
up. And this is about what we call our plan A and our plan B philosophy. Our
mhm,
plan A is everything we're trying to achieve, assuming everything goes to plan. And plan B is what happens when the wheels fall off, and how can we use our experiences, our intuition, our insight to be able to forecast what is possible and work out what risks do we self insure for, what risks do we outsource, or what risks do we just accept? If
mhm,
they happen, but the probability is low, and we just recognize and make risk adjusted decisions on that basis. What's really important about what we do is we teach people how to better think when it comes to their money, so they can
mhm,
make better decisions for themselves and continue to improve and calibrate their own roadmap. And I think that's what's really important, and knowing how to
yeah,
adjust for these things and factor them in, so they don't become detrimental anchors that kind of hold you back from what you're trying to achieve.
mhm. Yeah, it's so true. And I think with money in particular, we really can punish ourselves around like, oh, I stopped doing the plan, or I missed the mark, or I wasn't able to achieve X, Y, and Z. And What I love about having an advisor on board is like, we've been able to look really creatively like, well, what about if you do this over here, this thing that you didn't even think of that you're sitting on as an asset? Because like we had a $20,000 furnace replacement that we had to deal with, in the middle of winter last year. And so, that was one of those things like, okay, yeah, we didn't have $20,000 in our budget for this thing that just has to happen. But we quickly figured out how to make it work and to not impact the trajectory of our plan for the year, right? But I don't know. I just having experienced trying to do finances without somebody like
It's hard.
yourself, it's hard. Can you speak a little bit to that? Why that is for most people?
What this boils down to, Heather, is that most people assess their finances based on a black and white pass fail strategy.
Mm,
It's like, hey, I set out to achieve this goal. I didn't achieve it. The world's come crashing down. I may as well give up. And that's not how it works. This is a momentum-based plan. So the
mm,
idea here is that we understand what's the North Star. Where are we actually trying to get to? We reverse engineer it into the milestones. So we set quarterly targets across 6 key
mm,
categories, what we call our money metrics for our clients that allow them to see how they're progressing towards that. And then we use a momentum-based plan that we say, okay, cool, over the 12 months, we're trying to get from here to here. Q1, we should be about here. Okay, maybe we're a little bit short. Cool. This is what we've got to do to recalibrate for Q2 to play catch up.
mm,
Maybe we're still a little bit short. Okay, cool. What do we got to do Q3? And if we're constantly having these back-to-back shortfalls, we then need to reassess, are we being
yeah.
realistic? And maybe we just need to recalibrate our trajectory. Because there's no point saying to yourself, hey, like for me, I'm 5'6" and I weigh 60 kilos. I'm not going to go and compete in Mr. Olympia, right? It's not possible. And it's one of those things, right? So we've got to get out of dreaming and making
Mm,
ego-based decisions and having what we call a feedback loop. The idea of a feedback loop, and it's been used for hundreds of years, and it's one of my most powerful tools that I use personally and that we use with
mm,
our clients, is that we all have a perspective of what's possible. Think about that like a circle. And then we have another circle, which is the reality. And they're not very closely overlapped. And the problem is for most of us as entrepreneurs, we then, once we see the reality, we then make a new perspective. So we're always looking forwards as opposed to taking the time to reflect as to why the overlap of those two circles was only what it was. So let's say
mm,
the circles overlap 25%. So you were 25% on track for what you thought was going to happen. Why? Okay, what could I do differently next time? What
mm,
changed that I didn't perceive setting out? And by doing this kind of thing over time, we bring these circles actually very closely overlapped. So over a period of 12 months or 18 months working with our clients, we have them so like detailed, calibrated to what is possible and the sensitivity of the levers in their particular
mhm.
situation that what they perceive, they achieve.
Mm. Well, I love that. I mean, and one of the questions I had for you is how far off even are people frequently with their North Star, right? Like having that match reality of what they actually need, or because I can imagine some people don't even really know how to get there.
No, they don't. I'd probably say 90% of people are flying completely blind. And the analogy I like to use is that majority of people are walking in the dark financially. Like visualize yourself
Yes.
that you're in a strange hotel room first night and you wake up in the middle of the night and you're trying to kind of like waddle your way to the toilet without waking up your partner and turning the lights on. How do you walk, right? You're like shuffling, you're
Mhm.
feeling out, you don't want to kick the coffee table. You're tentative in everything that you do. And this is exactly what people do in their finances for their entire lifetime. So
Mhm.
what we need to do is we need to turn on those lights financially. Sure, we're still in a strange place whilst we're getting used to it,
Mhm.
but we can at least make decisive steps in the right direction.
Mm. What do you wish people knew, right? Especially earlier in the journey, or, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people like had one guy on the podcast who talked about he went through financial catastrophe after financial catastrophe through midlife. He was like, I did not figure out wealth creation until I was in my 60s. Right. And
Yeah.
he now teaches other people about it. But what do you wish people knew, really, wherever they are in their journey, that many don't?
Yeah, I think there's 2 points here. The first point being that you need to learn the language of money because it's not taught. We don't learn at school. We learn through first-hand experiences. We learn from observing our parents. It's a
Mhm.
subjective experience and it's not holistic. So you need to take it upon yourself to learn it. It's not complicated. The industry has made it out to be complicated. There are very simple systems that you can learn that are going to be life-changing and actually enjoyable.
Mhm.
And two, it's never too early or late. Like
Mhm.
the sooner you start, the better. But I've had clients come to me in their 60s, very similar to the story that you just shared, and have been able to manufacture financial freedom very, very quickly because they understood the roadmap. They understood how to
Mhm.
create and make money work for them, and they learned how to manage their money effectively so it could continue to build and grow. So I think those are really the two key things.
Yeah.
You can't abdicate financial responsibility. No one will love your money as much as you do. You need to
Yep.
learn how to manage it for yourself.
I love that. Super, super important. How much, and I would love to hear next, like the various ways that you provide support and services to your clients, but I am curious how much of what you do, like talk to us a bit about accountability, what
Yes.
the role is, how much accountability is involved in the ongoing support of your clients.
Yeah, it's interesting. I probably used to provide more accountability to my clients years ago, but now the
Mhm.
systems take care of the accountability. Keeping in
Mhm.
mind that when we need accountability when the default outcome is not action.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, Heather, have you done that thing? Hey, Heather, have you implemented that? Hey, have you done your sweeps? Hey, have you put money into your investment operating system? Accountability is there as a gap filler when the
Mhm.
system is not automated and the default outcome is not action. So 80% of the work that we do with our clients is all about implementing the wealth mastery machine.
Mhm.
It's about getting the systems in place. And yes, we hold them accountable to set it up. But once it's in place, it literally takes them 30 minutes a month to manage. And
Mm.
where we play the role is the yacht-based conversations. Cool. We've
Mhm.
got the system in place. We understand the sensitivity of the levers. We know the indicators where things are on track, off track, or need to be adjusted. Now, how do we elevate this thing? How do we scale this thing? How do we correlate the growth in your business to the growth in your wealth? And how do we
Mm.
supercharge and fast track our way to financial freedom? Those are the types of conversations that really light me up. But the precursor to all of that, that the system needs to be in place first, which typically takes about 90 days.
Awesome. Well, and I love that, like even the confidence that comes with like the system does the work, right? Like how many people are sitting here going, "Oh, I need that system. I don't have it yet." Like certain things are working, but not all of it. Um, are there things that are unique to entrepreneurs? Like when you're having,
Yes.
yeah, when you're having some of these, yacht level conversations, talk to us about kind of the unique twist that entrepreneurship throws in.
Yeah, and I hate to pick fights with the financial services industry, but it's just true. The vast majority of financial advisors and fiduciaries and even many accountants, they don't understand business.
Mm.
They ignore
Right?
business
They're set up
as
for
an asset
employees,
class.
right? Like if you're
Yes.
an employee, great, let's talk.
Yeah. And like how
Mhm.
many business owners I've seen go to a financial advisor and they only say, hey, once your business has paid you the money, we'll only deal with the money that you've been paid, right? We'll just ignore what's in the business and what you're doing in your business completely. And let's be fair, if you look at any rich list around the world, every single person on there has either got there because of a business or because of a
Mhm.
business that was created by one of their family members that they've inherited, right?
Mhm.
Um, so business is the most valuable asset class that you will have to create and manufacture financial freedom. It is remiss to ignore it when it comes to creating a financial plan and building wealth. So, what is
Mhm.
critically important is that we understand the opportunity cost evaluation of when it makes sense for you to invest in your business.
Mhm.
And when I say invest, this is not about saying how reinvesting in my business and you're just using that as an excuse to pour more money back into a cash eating monster. No,
Mhm.
this is about how do we invest to maximize that business's value, position it for sale or some sort of liquidity
Mhm.
event, and ensure that we can use that as the best possible vehicle that will help you create financial freedom faster. Coupled with the fact that business owners are incredibly time poor, you have far less resource in terms of time available to manage your money. So stop stock picking, stop trying to be sexy and sophisticated with your wealth management. You are not the next Warren Buffett. It is not best use of your time. Your genius is your business. We need to make sure that your personal wealth is vanilla. It is boring. It is set and forget, because we need you to focus on your business and make sure that everything else is happening behind the scenes without your involvement, or as little of your involvement as possible.
And the thing that I want to point out about this piece about like it's vanilla, what's happening over here, it's vanilla from the standpoint that like you set it up according to certain rules, right? Like taking into account risk tolerance, etc. When we went through this activity of like, what lanes are we going to be in? Yet, once we did that and got everything going, systematized, etc., like we outperformed anything we had ever done in the past. So it's vanilla and it's absolutely thrilling, right? When it's working
Correct.
right and it's doing the right things for you.
Exactly. And this is the thing. You don't need to be actively involved in managing your wealth. The system of wealth creation should take care of itself for you. And like even for myself, I don't stock pick. All of my personal wealth goes into businesses, into real estate, good quality blue chip real estate with quality tenants that aren't going to give me headaches, that's in highly desirable areas, that is going to continue to appreciate, and in index funds and ETFs. And it's simple. This is why it takes me 30 minutes a month to manage, because it is not best use of my time. The best use of my time is to grow and scale my business and live my life. And this
Yes.
is where so many business owners get it wrong.
So true. The best use of your time is to scale your business and live your life, right? Again, back to what should our highest priorities be given who we are, our strengths, our talents, our goals. I mean, you live on a wildlife preserve, right?
Exactly.
Like, of course, you want to be spending some time enjoying your life. Oh my goodness. I feel like there is just so much good stuff here. And it sounds like your resources and the systems and the training that you provide within your services, so many entrepreneurs need, right? And that piece about like so often the traditional financial world really doesn't understand entrepreneurship. So true. So I'd love for you to share. I know you had a resource that I think you
Yes.
wanted to share with listeners. Do you want to talk a
Yeah, I'd
little
love
bit
to
about
love to
that?
share.
Mm-hmm.
So we work with clients the world around, because the language of money is universal. We've got clients as far as Bahrain that come far and wide to work with us, and we work with business owners from just getting started up to nine-figure businesses. And the system is exactly the same. It doesn't change. All that changes is the magnitude of money that the system deals with. So what's really key to what we do is that we teach people how to fish and manage their money for themselves. So then they can be in an informed and educated position to, if they want to hire a financial advisor or a fiduciary, they can at least hold them to a higher standard because they know what they're doing, as opposed to abdicating that responsibility and just hoping and praying that that person is going to look after your best interests. And
Yeah.
in many cases, our clients end up managing everything for themselves and doing so very, very confidently. So if you want to find out more, we've got a resource for you guys that's basically going to give you a 40-point financial performance scorecard. So we've worked out that there's 40 things that get in the way for business owners manufacturing financial freedom. The average score is 18 out of 40, which is pretty scary.
Ooh.
The interesting thing is that the vast majority of people who complete the scorecard can add between 5 and 10 points to their score in 90 days or less. So complete the scorecard. I don't care if you're 5 or you're 35, just work out what are the things that you're not currently doing that you could be doing, and focus on those low-hanging fruit. You get copies of my best-selling books and some other tools, calculators, and cheat sheets that are going to help support you in implementing some of the stuff we spoke about. So if you go to wealthhealthcheck.com.au, that's wealthhealthcheck.com.au, and go get all those resources, and we'd love to support. There's some details on there if you want to reach out and have a chat, how we might be able to help you, and love to see how we can support you in pursuit of financial freedom.
That's amazing. So if you're listening, we will share that link, and anything else you want us to share, like including the link to your book. Congratulations. We will share that at the podcast notes page, which is legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Find Jackson's episode and they'll be there. Jackson, if people do want to connect with you, is the best way through that resource first, or are you other places online that they can go seek you out?
Yeah, so add me on Facebook as a friend. I produce heaps of content every day about finance and wealth, on me running around the farm, and I try and be as entertaining as possible, just to give people a different spin on how to get on top of their money, because it should be enjoyable. So feel free to connect with me there, and all of the other details of how to connect with me are on that link.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. So what would be one final action step aside from going, and clearly we all need to get this 40-point checklist, but one other action step that you would like people to take that have stuck with us and are here in this conversation?
Yeah, I think the most important part here is focus on progress over perfection. And I look at this as creating what we call money muscle memory. Think about going to the gym. You're not going to go to the gym for the first time and deadlift 500 pounds. It's just, you're going to hurt yourself if you even lift the bar at all. So what we need to do is, if you're just getting started, start with the bar. Let's get the form right.
Mm,
And then we can start adding weight over time. This is a momentum building exercise.
mm.
Stop trying to focus on getting it perfect, finding the right time, the right place, the right system to start. Just get started, and we can optimize as we go.
So good. Progress over perfection. Yes, we need to remember that in multiple areas of our lives. Jackson, so great to see you again. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you and learn a little bit more about what you do and the way that you came to doing it, because you have a very unique way of approaching it. So I really appreciate you. I'm so grateful to be connected.
My pleasure. Chat to you soon.